Commander Vex-Nine stared at the holographic display with what could only be described as cosmic bewilderment. The human ship hung there in space like a rusted tin can someone had forgotten to throw away. Paint peeling, hull scarred with meteor impacts, and what appeared to be duct tape holding one of the engine pods together. "Sir," his tactical officer Zara 5 whispered, her voice trembling with barely contained laughter. "Are we absolutely certain this is the vessel that destroyed 3 of our dreadnoughts?" Vex-Nine's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The Krellian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 8,000 years. Their warriors were genetically engineered killing machines, their technology advanced beyond comprehension, their military might unquestionable. And yet here they were, staring at what looked like a flying garbage disposal unit that had somehow managed to humiliate their finest battleships. "According to all reports, yes," he replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Apparently the humans have mastered the ancient art of making miracles out of space junk." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Nobody wanted to be the one to point out that their invincible fleet had been outmaneuvered by beings who still used fossil fuels on their home planet. The humans had only achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago, yet here they were, making the Krellian Empire look like amateurs. "Incoming transmission from the human vessel," announced Communications Officer Next 7, her voice cracking slightly. "Put it through," Vex-Nine commanded, straightening his ceremonial armor. Time to show these primitives what real power looked like. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a human female with short auburn hair and eyes that sparkled with mischief. She was wearing what appeared to be a faded jumpsuit with patches sewn on it, sitting in what could generously be called a command chair if you ignored the fact that it was clearly held together with metal wire and good intentions. "Greetings, Commander Vex-Nine," she said with a smile that somehow managed to be both friendly and terrifying. "I'm Captain Maya Torres of the U.S. Defiant. Nice ship you've got there." "Very shiny." Vex-Nine's eye twitched. The audacity of this creature, commenting on his ship as if she were critiquing a museum piece. "Human, you will surrender immediately. Your vessel is surrounded by the might of the Krellian Empire. Resistance is futile." Captain Torres laughed, a sound that sent chills down the spines of every Krellian on the bridge. "Oh, that's adorable. You actually think you've got us surrounded." She leaned forward, her smile widening. "Computer, show the nice aliens what we brought to the party." The tactical display lit up like a festival of destruction. Dozens, no, hundreds of human ships decloaked around the Krellian fleet. They were all like the Defiant, mismatched, patched together, and absolutely bristling with weapons that defied every known principle of physics. "Impossible," Zara 5 gasped. "Our sensors showed nothing." "That's because you were looking for logic," Torres replied cheerfully. "We don't really do logic. We prefer to hold my beer and watch this approach to problem solving." Vex-Nine felt his stomach drop to somewhere around his ankles. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. Humans were supposed to be weak, divided, technologically inferior. The intelligence reports had been very clear about that. "You're bluffing," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" Torres tilted her head like a predator studying prey. "Let me tell you a little story, Commander. You see, humans have this funny habit of getting really creative when someone tries to kill us. We've had practice. Lots of practice." She gestured to something off-screen, and the display shifted to show Earth. But it wasn't the peaceful blue marble the Krellians had expected. "Was a route." The planet was covered in massive orbital defense platforms, space elevators that doubled as weapons, and what appeared to be artificially created asteroid fields arranged in perfect geometric patterns. "We've been fighting each other for thousands of years," Torres continued conversationally. "Wars, revolutions, bar fights that lasted decades. We've gotten really good at finding new and interesting ways to make things explode. So when you showed up and started making threats, well, we took it as a challenge." Vex-Nine's hands were shaking now. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. How had the intelligence been so wrong? "But here's the thing," Torres said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any roar. "We're not unreasonable. We're willing to talk. In fact, I've got someone here who's been dying to meet you." The transmission cut out for a moment, then returned to show a human male. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark skin and eyes that held the kind of quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly how dangerous you were. He was wearing simple clothes, no armor, no weapons visible. Somehow, that made him infinitely more terrifying. "Commander Vex-Nine," the man said, his voice calm and measured. "I'm Marcus Webb. I understand you have a warrior you're particularly proud of." This was it. This was the moment Vex-Nine had been waiting for. Finally, a chance to show these humans what real strength looked like. "Gorth-Prime," he said with renewed confidence, "the greatest warrior the Krellian Empire has ever produced. Enhanced genetics, cybernetic implants, trained from birth in every known form of combat. He has never been defeated." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Impressive. I'd like to meet him." "You wish to challenge him?" Vex-Nine couldn't hide his eagerness. Finally, these humans would learn their place. Challenge might be too strong a word. Marcus replied with a slight smile. "Let's call it a conversation." The arrangements were made quickly. The human ship would dock with the Krellian flagship. Marcus Webb would face Gorth-Prime in single combat, with the understanding that the winner would determine the fate of both fleets. Vex-Nine watched the docking procedure with growing anticipation. The human ship looked even more ridiculous up close. It was held together with what appeared to be a combination of welding, prayer, and sheer bloody-mindedness. How it had survived faster than light travel was a mystery that would probably baffle scientists for centuries. Gorth-Prime stood in the center of the combat arena, a mountain of muscle and metal, 8 feet tall, with armor that could deflect plasma cannons and strength that could crush steel with his bare hands. He had killed over 300 opponents in ritual combat, each victory adding to his legend. The human, Marcus Webb, walked into the arena looking like he was going for a casual stroll. No armor, no weapons, just a man in simple clothes who seemed completely unconcerned about facing a genetically enhanced killing machine. "Is this some kind of joke?" Gorth-Prime rumbled, his voice amplified by the speakers in his helmet. "They send me a weakling?" Marcus looked up at him and smiled. "I get that a lot." The combat began immediately. Gorth-Prime moved with inhuman speed, his fist whistling through the air where Marcus had been standing a split second before. The humans seemed to flow like water, always just out of reach, never quite where he was expected to be. "Stand still and fight." Gorth-Prime roared, his massive fists creating craters in the arena floor with each missed strike. "I am fighting," Marcus replied calmly, ducking under a swing that would have decapitated him. "You're just not very good at it." The Krellian audience watched in stunned silence as their greatest warrior flailed helplessly, his incredible strength useless against an opponent who simply refused to be where the attacks were aimed. It was like watching a tiger try to catch smoke. Gorth-Prime's breathing was becoming labored. His enhanced physiology was designed for short, brutal encounters, not extended battles against opponents who treated combat like a dance. "What are you?" he gasped, finally stopping his assault. Marcus straightened, his breathing still perfectly even. "I'm a human. And here's the thing about humans that your intelligence reports probably missed." He began walking toward the towering warrior, each step deliberate and measured. "We don't fight fair. We don't fight with honor. We fight to win." He was close now, well within Gorth-Prime's reach. The Krellian warrior raised his fist for a final, desperate strike. Marcus moved. It happened so fast that the recording systems could barely capture it. One moment, Gorth-Prime was standing triumphant. The next, he was on the ground, his legs bent at angles that definitely weren't natural. The arena fell silent, except for Gorth-Prime's agonized screams. Marcus stood over the fallen warrior, his expression unchanged. The human body has over 600 muscles, 206 bones, and roughly 27,000 nerve endings. I know where every single one of them is, and exactly how much pressure it takes to break them. He looked up at Vex-Nine, who was staring in horror at his fallen champion. Your warrior will live. He'll even walk again, eventually, but he'll never fight again. Every time he tries to take a step, he'll remember this moment. He'll remember that a human, a supposedly inferior being, took apart his entire world with nothing but knowledge and timing. The human turned to address the entire Krellian delegation. You came here expecting to conquer us. You thought we were weak because we're young, because we don't have your technology, because we still fight among ourselves. But you made a fundamental error in your calculations. He gestured toward the fallen Gorth-Prime. You assumed that strength meant the ability to destroy. But real strength isn't about how much damage you can inflict. It's about how much you can endure, how much you can adapt, and how creative you can get when someone tries to kill you. Marcus began walking toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the silent arena. We humans have been trying to kill each other for millennia. We've gotten very good at it. But we've also gotten very good at surviving. And when we put our minds to something, when we really focus on a problem, we don't just solve it. We obliterate it so thoroughly that it becomes a cautionary tale. He paused at the doorway and looked back. You have a choice, Commander Vex-Nine. You can learn from this moment, or you can repeat it. But I should warn you, if you choose to repeat it, the conversation won't be nearly as polite next time. The human disappeared into the corridor, leaving behind a room full of Krellians who were just beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. The greatest warrior in their empire was writhing on the floor, defeated not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by simple human ingenuity applied to the art of violence. Vex-Nine stared at the empty doorway, his mind racing. The intelligence reports had been catastrophically wrong. Humans weren't weak or divided. They were a species that had turned warfare into an art form, that had made survival their greatest achievement. And now they were among the stars, carrying with them thousands of years of hard-won wisdom about how to break things that needed breaking. The communication system crackled to life. Captain Torres' voice filled the arena. Commander Vex-Nine, I hope you've enjoyed our little demonstration. We're transmitting coordinates for a neutral meeting point where we can discuss the terms of your withdrawal from human space. I suggest you accept quickly, before our patience runs out. The transmission ended, leaving the Krellians alone with their thoughts and their wounded pride. Outside, the human fleet waited with the patience of predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Vex-Nine looked down at Gorth-Prime, who was being tended to by medical staff. The greatest warrior in Krellian history, reduced to a cautionary tale by a human who had treated the entire encounter like a minor inconvenience. The commander activated his communication system. Prepare for withdrawal, he ordered quietly. All ships, prepare for withdrawal. Because sometimes, the smartest thing a warrior can do is recognize when he's been outmatched. And today, the Krellian Empire had learned that lesson in the most humbling way possible. 3 days later, Vex-Nine found himself sitting across from Captain Maya Torres in what the humans generously called a diplomatic suite. The room was aboard a neutral space station that looked like it had been assembled by committee, with each species contributing their own idea of what architecture should look like. The result was a fascinating mess that somehow worked. Torres was sipping something that smelled like industrial solvent mixed with flowers, coffee, she had called it. The human beverage that apparently fueled their entire civilization. Vex-Nine was beginning to understand why they were so aggressively energetic. So, Torres said, setting down her cup with a satisfied sigh, let's talk about your little invasion plan. There was no invasion. Vex-Nine protested weakly. It was a diplomatic mission. Torres raised an eyebrow. A diplomatic mission that involved surrounding our solar system with battleships and demanding our unconditional surrender? Well, when you put it like that, Vex-Nine's mandibles clicked nervously. I do put it like that, because that's exactly what happened. Torres leaned back in her chair, studying him with those unsettling human eyes. But here's the thing, Commander. We're not angry. This was somehow more terrifying than if she had been screaming at him. Vex-Nine had dealt with angry aliens before. Calm, reasonable humans were uncharted territory. You're not? Nope. Actually, we're kind of flattered. Do you know how long it's been since someone took us seriously enough to bring their A game? Torres grinned. Most species just send us strongly worded letters or impose trade sanctions. You guys showed up with a full battle fleet. That's commitment. And Vex-Nine wasn't sure if he was being complimented or mocked. With humans, it was apparently possible to be both simultaneously. However, Torres continued, her tone shifting slightly, we do need to discuss the future. See, word is going to get out about what happened here. Other species are going to hear that the mighty Krellian Empire got schooled by a bunch of humans, and they're going to start getting ideas. What kind of ideas? The kind where they think we're either incredibly dangerous or incredibly lucky. And honestly, we'd prefer they go with dangerous. Lucky implies that we might not be able to repeat the performance. A new voice interrupted their conversation. May I join you? Marcus Webb entered the room, moving with that same fluid grace that had made Gorth-Prime look like a stumbling amateur. He was carrying a small device that looked like a cross between a medical scanner and a torture instrument. Marcus, Torres nodded. How's our patient? Recovering. The medical team says he'll be walking within a few weeks, though he'll have a pronounced limp for the rest of his life. His pride is taking longer to heal. Vex-Nine shifted uncomfortably. About that, Gorth-Prime he was our finest warrior. His defeat has caused significant discussion among our people. Discussion? Marcus sat down, placing the device on the table. What kind of discussion? The kind where half the council wants to declare war on humanity and the other half wants to offer you a formal alliance, Vex-Nine admitted. Torres and Marcus exchanged glances. And which half are you on? Torres asked. The half that wants to go home and pretend this never happened. Vex-Nine replied honestly. Marcus laughed, a sound that was somehow both warm and intimidating. That's probably the smartest approach, but unfortunately, it's not going to be that simple. He activated the device, and a holographic display filled the space above the table. It showed a star map with various colored dots representing different species and their territories. This is the current political situation in the galaxy, Marcus explained. The Krellian Empire controls about 30% of known space. The Valdari Federation has another 20%. The Zephyrian Commonwealth has 15%. And then there are dozens of smaller powers, each one looking for an opportunity to expand. Your point? Vex-Nine asked, though he suspected he already knew. My point is that nature abhors a vacuum. If the Krellian Empire suddenly appears weak, every ambitious species in the galaxy is going to see an opportunity. Your territory will be carved up within a decade. Torres nodded. And that's bad for everyone, including us. Pardon. How is that bad for you? Vex-Nine was genuinely confused. If we're weakened, we're less of a threat. You're thinking like a warrior. Marcus replied. We're thinking like strategists. A weakened Krellian Empire means chaos. Chaos means refugee crises, trade disruptions, and as in different wars as everyone tries to grab a piece of your territory. We'd rather deal with one stable empire than 50 unstable kingdoms. Torres pulled up another section of the star map. Plus, there's this little problem. The display showed a section of space that appeared to be completely empty. No stars, no planets, nothing but void. The Devourers, Vex-Nine whispered. Exactly. Your empire has been holding the line against them for what, 2,000 years? If you collapse, who's going to keep them contained? The Devourers were a nightmare from the dark corners of space, not quite alive, not quite machine. They consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty void in their wake. The Krellian Empire had built a massive defensive line to keep them contained, sacrificing entire generations to maintain the barrier. So, here's our proposal. Torres said, leaning forward. We help you maintain your empire. In exchange, you help us establish ourselves as a legitimate galactic power. What does that mean? Exactly. Marcus smiled. It means we become allies, not subjects. Not servants, allies. We share technology, trade resources, and present a united front against common threats. And if we refuse, then you go home. Try to maintain your empire with a shattered reputation and hope that someone else figures out how to deal with the Devourers when your defenses inevitably fail. Torres shrugged. Your choice. Vex-Nine considered this. The humans were offering to help preserve the Krellian Empire, but they were also making it clear that refusal meant facing the consequences alone. It was diplomacy with a velvet glove wrapped around an iron fist. What about Gorth-Prime? What about the humiliation? What about it? Marcus asked. Gorth-Prime was defeated by a superior opponent. In warrior cultures, that's supposed to be educational, isn't it? But he was our greatest warrior. And now you know what a human can do when properly motivated. Think of it as valuable intelligence. Marcus leaned back. Besides, Gorth-Prime isn't the only warrior in your empire. He's just the one who was trained to fight other Krellians. Torres nodded. We're not interested in conquering your empire, Commander. We're interested in surviving in a galaxy that's apparently full of people who want to kill us. Having friends makes that easier. And if we become allies, what happens to human independence? Nothing. We remain independent. You remain independent. We just agree to help each other when the situation calls for it. Torres smiled. Think of it as a mutual defense pact with benefits. The negotiations continued for hours. The humans were surprisingly reasonable, considering they held all the cards. They wanted technology sharing, trade agreements, and a formal recognition of human space. In return, they offered military assistance, advanced defensive strategies, and something they called creative problem solving. Creative problem solving? Vex-Nine asked. It's what we do best, Marcus explained. You have a problem. We find a solution, usually one that nobody else would think of, because it's either too crazy or too simple. Like defeating our greatest warrior with nothing but knowledge of anatomy? Exactly. We don't fight fair, remember? We fight smart. By the end of the day, they had the framework of an agreement. The Krellian Empire would recognize human space and accept humanity as a legitimate galactic power. In return, humans would provide military and technological assistance to help maintain Krellian borders. There's one more thing, Torres said as they prepared to adjourn. What? We want to establish an exchange program. Human officers serving on Krellian ships, Krellian officers serving on human ships, cultural exchange, mutual understanding, that sort of thing. Vex-Nine imagined humans loose on Krellian warships, applying their twisted logic to military problems. It was either going to be brilliant or catastrophic, probably both. Very well, he agreed. Excellent. Torres stood up and extended her hand. Welcome to the neighborhood, Commander. Vex-Nine stared at the outstretched hand, then tentatively took it. The human grip was firm but not crushing, confident but not dominating. It was, he realized, exactly what he should have expected from a species that had just redefined galactic politics without firing a shot. 6 months later, Vex-Nine stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching a joint human-Krellian fleet conduct maneuvers near the Devourer containment zone. The humans had brought their usual collection of ships that looked like they had been assembled in someone's garage, but their tactical innovations were already proving invaluable. Incoming transmission from Captain Torres, announced his communications officer. Put her through. Torres appeared on the main screen, grinning from her patched-together command chair. Commander, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news first. The Devourers are testing our defenses again. 3 probe ships just crossed the containment line. And the good news? We're about to field test some new human modifications to your plasma cannons. Turns out, if you route the power through a gravitational lens and add what we call aggressive harmonics, You can increase the destructive yield by about 400%. Vex-Nine felt his mandibles click, and what he had learned was the Krellian equivalent of a human smile. Do I want to know what aggressive harmonics means? Probably not. But you're going to love watching it work. The joint fleet moved toward the containment zone. Human creativity and Krellian engineering working together to face a threat that had terrified the galaxy for millennia. As they approached the area where the Devourer probes had been detected, Vex-Nine reflected on how much had changed. The Krellian Empire was stronger than ever, backed by allies who treated impossible problems as interesting puzzles. The humans had established themselves as a major galactic power without conquering a single world, and Gorth-Prime, their former greatest warrior, was now serving as a tactical advisor, his defeat having taught him more about combat than 1,000 victories ever could. The Devourer ships appeared on the sensors, dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. They were massive, ancient, and absolutely terrifying. Target acquired, Torres announced cheerfully, firing modified plasma cannons in 3, 2, 1. The space around the Devourer ships erupted in light as the human-modified weapons fired. The effect was spectacular, turning the enemy vessels into rapidly expanding clouds of superheated particles. Well, Vex-Nine said, watching the destruction, that was certainly aggressive. And harmonic, Torres added. Don't forget harmonic. As the joint fleet returned to base, Vex-Nine couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, having humans as neighbors wasn't such a bad thing after all. They were insane, unpredictable, and absolutely terrifying when properly motivated. In other words, they were perfect allies. The greatest warrior in the Krellian Empire had faced a human and never walked the same again. But in losing that battle, he had helped his people win something far more valuable than victory. They had won the future, and all it had cost them was their pride. Sometimes, that was the best deal you could get.